always pass them as we go up. They'll be coming down. I'll try to point it out and tell you which one is likely to get you. The only thing I can guarantee is the seat on the A train up the mountain. 12 o'clock A train, all aboard.
He said all aboard.
May I have your attention, please?
Water bodies just below the summit of Mount Washington, the lakes and the clouds. They're the highest water bodies east of the Mississippi. To our west in the town of Littleton, it joins with the Connecticut River. Sooner or later this water ends up in 105. You'll need a little head start as well. A top speed of 5 miles an hour. Now safe to stand. If you'd like to walk up and down the aisle, you're more than free. If you'd like to take a picture out the front door and I'm in your way, just to... Again, after several years of operation, he decided to take his business and head west. He ended up in a small trading post. Business grew, so did that community. Mark is one of the founding fathers of the city of Chicago. After spending the night at the Footpath House, Mark woke up the next morning. Lovely day, clear skies, very similar to what we have right now. Rails are here only for balance. All our propulsion, all our braking is done on that center rack. Once Mark's built a mission for construction. State legislature. Once he convinced him he was looking to undertake the venture with the tank out of mountain. Our steam engines require 1,000 gallons, so they need to stop, fill up their tanks, and continue along. But there's still about 3 gallons. Now, go by the water tank. We'll have gained 1,100. There are winter destinations. During the summer months, we go all the way to the top of the mountain. But after Columbus Day, the state closes down the park. The building is closed. You Washington in the middle of winter, enjoy the weather, roast a marshmallow or two in our fire pit, have a hot dog. They look healthy coming down. They survived. We're going slow because we've got two more trains coming down the mountain. They need to go through the switch before we can continue up the mountain. But you may notice as we go up on our wooden supports, we have a numbering set to stop. Move a series of switches. Manually move 9 pieces of track. Pull off onto a siding. On the siding, move the 9 pieces of track back into the 9 pieces of track one more time, back off the siding, and when they were finally on, it allows us to be far more efficient. Now approaching the halfway house. As the name implies, it's halfway up the mountain. Early on in our operations, our steam engines were wood-fired. They couldn't do it. We had one train at the top of the mountain, one train at the bottom. The trains would meet at the halfway house. When they met, passengers would swap from one train to the other and head to their final destination. Building now used as a break room for our track maintenance station. The very front of the building has a picture with and that sign is accurate. That building is absolutely level here or not. Across the bridge. You're looking pretty much due north at this point. State of New Hampshire extends another 70 miles to the north. After that, you're into Canada. And off to the left is Mount Clay. Coming down the ridge to the right of Mount Clay, the world disappears. The steepest part of our track, the pitch is 37.4%. These levels standing 17 feet, almost 18 feet higher than the typical year. To the right, you will be south into the Eminences ravine. As promised, there's the Appalachian Mountain Club's Hiker's Hut, Lake. The mountains just beyond are the southern presidential Mount Monroe and Mount Eisenhower. Now as you look to the left, you're looking again pretty much to the west. At this point, the mountains we can just see in the far back. Our roadway is US Route 2. Has its origins on the... Now, if you have particularly good eyesight, you take a look at that road. Now, on a Monday morning, I don't expect to see too many hikers. But if we do, or you see it, gift shop. In the basement of the building is the Weather Museum. Your train ticket will gain you access to that. The round turret on this end of the building is the Mount Washington Weather Observatory. Weather Observatory has had... Off to the left, you can see some automobiles on the Mount Washington Auto Road. That's a 7.5-mile roadway that comes up the eastern side of the mountain. For a fee, you can pay to come up the mountain. However, if you've braked before, the ride down isn't quite as nice. It's filled with 15 different states. White Mountains are considered the most difficult part of the journey. But once the hikers cross the top of Mount Washington, they've only got another two. About 30,000 hikers a year attempt to make this. Now these stone cairns right in front of us mark the Appalachian Trail. I invite you to get up in the aisles, take a few steps back and forth, and tell everybody you hiked on the Appalachian. One on our right to commemorate Lizzie Bourne. Remain seated until we come to a complete stop. When we get to the top of the mountain, I'll be stepping off the train. I'll guide Nick to our parking spot.
safer that way because it allows the coach to be stopped independently of the locomotive if that were to ever be necessary. And that's what these brakes are for. If it does happen, we just wave goodbye to Phil and wish him the best. But we're not going with him. And I have never had to throw the brakes in a live situation in all that time. So I'm not planning on having you witness that today. But nevertheless, we are always ready for it. So, and since where we started out there, we were not on the grade, we were flat there. So in order for us to come along with him when he pulls out, we have to be towed. So we have a chain to where we were just now, back on the grade. We stop, and that chain is removed. And from that point on, it's all downhill. So going up the mountain, you did about 5 miles an hour. Going down the mountain, it's more like 102. You'll be back in your cars in 2 minutes.
Yeah!
Now you can see the auto road right beside us here to the right. And the auto road is a 7.6 mile road that climbs to the summit on the northeast flank of the mountain. So it goes down the mountain roughly in that direction, over to our right. So it's on the other side of the mountain from the railway. It's actually older than the railway by 8 years. It opened in 1861, originally as the Mount Washington Carriage Road. The season runs roughly from mid-May till mid to late October. They don't plow it, and you may be aware that the Weather Observatory people are up here. In the wintertime, the Weather Observatory vehicles that have big treads, they just go over the top of the snow on the auto road. And you can actually buy a ticket to ride one of those things up here if you were so inclined to want to come up here in the middle of winter, where on February 6th of this year we came within 1 degree of tying the all-time record for low temperature at the summit, which is 47 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. We hit 46 below this February 6th. The wind chill that day was 110 degrees below 0. They removed all the snow in one big project where they clean out culverts and everything. It takes about, in addition to all the regular traffic on the road during the summer season, they also have several days where they hold races on it. And they shut it down to the regular traffic during that time. Yet, there's a guy that competed in this race for many years, up until 4 years ago. The first of his time from the previous year when he was 98, a year off. But he's still with us. He's 103 years old, and his name is George Etzweiler. He is your professor? No, okay. Yeah, I've been asking. And I had a woman do that recently when she got off the train at the base. She told me that it showed me her phone. It says here that George Etzweiler rappelled down a high-rise dormitory at Penn State earlier this summer, raising money for charity. And I said, well, that surprises me. I'm 3. So we got a nice look at the northern presidential range over there to our right. Mount Madison all the way to the right. The northernmost presidential with Mount Adams just beside it to the left. And Mount Adams is the second tallest mountain in New Hampshire at just under 5,800 feet. Further up ahead here with the summit in the fog there is Mount Jefferson, with most of the mountain in the sunlight. And then we have Mount Clay right beside us, of course. And this huge ravine separating us from the northern presidentials. You see the hiking trail out there marked by the cairns. Right beside us is our work road. That's not a hiking trail. That's so we can get easy ATV access to the tracks for maintenance. But you see the hiking trail marked by the cairns just beyond it. And just beyond that is where the terrain drops suddenly into the Gulf. And there's a couple of points where the trail below us here runs literally right along that rim. So if you hike it within inches of your hiking boots, it's dropping off over 1,000 feet down to the floor of the Great Gulf. And if you were to stand on any of these northern presidential peaks and look back here at Mount Washington, on a day like this, what you would see is the train going by, and then right in front of it, a 1,000-foot rock wall. And people do ski that. They ski on the north face of Mount Washington. The snow sticks around generally. That's after the auto road is opened up, so it's a lot easier to drive your car up here and hike over here and ski down, rather than hiking the 8 or 9 miles up through the Great Gulf and then climbing this head wall, very steep head wall at the end of that 8 or 9 mile hike. But most of the skiing on the mountain takes place over on the other side. That happens in another ravine over there that's called Tuckerman Ravine. The person that's standing in the aisle there at the back of the train, can I please have you take your seat? I can't have you standing in the aisle, sir. Thank you. Could you stand behind, at least stand behind my engineers honking at me because they're in the aisle. Thank you. Okay, once again, folks, I'm going to ask you to stay at your seats all the way down the mountain. It is not safe to stand in the aisles. Thank you. So most of the skiing takes place on the other side of the mountain in Tuckerman Ravine, which is on the southeast side of the summit. And they ski over there because it gets significantly more snow over there than we get over on this side. And Tuckerman Ravine is very much like the Great Gulf. It has a very steep head wall, just like this right beside us. And the head wall of Tuckerman is steep enough that when the skiers climb up it, they got to use their hands as well as their feet. And of course, if you want to ski it, you do have to climb it because there aren't any chairlifts on this mountain. People come from all over the country to ski Tuckerman. They do it mainly in the springtime when the snow's begun to soften up, generally between April and June. And they've been doing this for a very long time, since at least as far back as the 1930s. And in those years, the colleges in this area hosted an annual ski race over in Tuckerman at all to control his speed. So he gained maximum speed all the way down the mountain. And as he described it himself, it was not long after he left the summit and was approaching the head wall of Tuckerman that he suddenly realized it was already too late to change his mind and start turning, because he had gained so much speed that he could no longer physically turn his skis. So at that point, I think his options were pretty limited. And I think that boiled down basically to saying a prayer. But he skied directly off the head wall, launching himself into the air, but he kept his tips up, and he landed perfectly down in the bowl of Tuckerman, which is no small task because the head wall of Tuckerman is not a uniform wall of snow. It's kind of alternating chutes of snow with huge rock outcroppings and cliffs. And so when you go over that head wall, you got to hit one of those chutes, or it's total disaster. And you can't see it when you're above the head wall. So you got to know where you're going before you set out. Well, he made it. He went down through the bowl of Tuckerman and then continued through the woods on a narrowly cut ski trail called the Sherburne Trail, all the way to the base of Mount Washington on the east side at Pinkham Notch. And it was a distance of 3.5 miles. Tony Matt skied that in 6 minutes and 29 seconds, reaching a top speed of 90 miles an hour, 90, on skis. And important to that story is that the Sherburne Trail never gets much wider than 20 or 25 feet. So at 90 miles an hour, his margin for error was relatively almost nil. It wouldn't take much to go off course and hit a tree down in those woods. But he made it. He said when he got to the bottom, he had tree bark all over his parka. With Mount Franklin right beside it, beyond the gap is Mount Eisenhower, and the southernmost presidential we can't see from here. It's on the other side of Mount Eisenhower, and that is Mount Pierce, named for Franklin Pierce, the on the right of our tracks. down the railway to the base station and beyond out to Bretton Woods, the Mount Washington Hotel, the base station road right beside the hotel, the 6-mile access road you drove up here from Route 302. If you can't see that view right now, you will see it in a minute, because just below us here, will be the Appalachian Mountain Club here in the higher peaks of Hampshire along the Appalachian Trail. They're about a half a day's hike apart from each other, long from just after Memorial Day till mid-September last week. You have to carry all of the food and supplies to the hut on your backs because there are no roads. The only way to get it there is for them to carry it in, to pack it in. They carry anywhere from 30 to 80 pounds. Sleeps 90 people, and it sells out a good number of the nights during the season. It's a very popular recreational activity. It's a 2.5-mile hike from the base station up to the hut. First 2 miles or so are very pleasant walk in the woods along the river. We can see looking over there the last half mile or so is very steep. You got to scramble up those rock slabs to get to the hut. But nevertheless, a lot of people do it. It's all communal. You take your meals with your. So if you're ever inclined to want to do that, 2 things you might want to know. 1, take earplugs with you. Because hikers snore just as much as the rest of us. People staying at the hut that are sleeping with you have hiked up that mountain just like you have. And just like you, none of them have had a bath. Racer by the name of Travis Pastrana, driving a specially adapted Subaru, specifically adapted for Mount Washington, drove the 7.6 miles up the auto road in 5 minutes and 44 seconds. And then the race was postponed by a year. They ran it again in 2021, and Travis Pastrana broke his own record. And this time he did it in 5 minutes and 28 seconds. So that's now the standing record. And to fully appreciate that, you gotta be familiar with the auto road. Now that road is anything but a major highway. It winds and twists its way up the mountain, switching back several times. You won't find a guardrail anywhere on it, despite the fact that the terrain drops off right next to the shoulder of the road. In several places, hundreds, maybe as much as 1,000 feet, and I was doing 15 miles an hour. Travis Pastrana was averaging 82. He's a motocross guy. He does backflips on motorcycles and generally makes Evel Knievel look like a wimp. But if you think I'm pulling your leg, go to YouTube and search for Race to the Cloud, main level of the station. There are a lot of interesting exhibits in there having to do with the history and technology of the railway, including one of something called a Devil's Shingle, which was it faster. And the Devil's Shingle was essentially a piece of wood that they could sit on. There was at least one, maybe two deaths, but they compete down the mountain. And allegedly that time, that by of all things, the state of New Hampshire is tight. And finally, with tail between the legs, sadly,